right, I'd like to go ahead and open the meeting for the Tuesday, March 19, 2019, Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So after speaking with the coaches from the Liberty Christian Academy, unfortunately, I think over 3/4 of the team is actually on the baseball team as well, and they have games every Tuesday. So I'm going to go ahead and ask for that to be removed. They apologize, but obviously if they're that athletic, we don't want to ever compromise that, and we'll hopefully be able to line up sometime that we can recognize them. But we do appreciate all that they've done and the achievements they've made so far, and hope they make more achievements with baseball. With that, we move on to the public hearing section with the proposed shops at the Warrenton Community Improvement District. Come on forward. If you would, just step to the podium, state your name.
Hello everyone, my name is Angela Oldham. I'm here on behalf of Armstrong Teasdale, LLP, and I represent Warrenton Shopping Center, LLC. They have recently filed a petition to establish a community improvement district here in Warrenton, specifically the shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District. And then over the last couple of years, Rob Clark from my law firm has also been here to talk to you about this development of the current shopping center out there. So previously, the board has passed adopted ordinances approving a redevelopment agreement that goes to redevelop an entire area in Warrenton, and part of that area is occupied by the Warrenton Outlet Center. And our client, as well as Rural King Realty LLC, has filed this petition to then go ahead and form a community improvement district out there. So the district would then go ahead and approve a 1% community improvement district sales and use tax that would be used to help reimburse my client, and then Rural King Realty LLC, who I do not personally represent, but has filed a petition to help redevelop that area. So they're working on the Rural King and then also updating the entire outlet center. Also, there'll be a special assessment that would be imposed upon the property owner, so that would be going on to my client, and then Rural King Realty LLC would not actually have the special assessment imposed upon them. This has been contemplated in the redevelopment agreement that I mentioned, as well as the First Amendment to Redevelopment Agreement that the board passed an ordinance adopting almost about a year ago now. There's no economic burden on the city itself. All the costs are borne by my client / Rural King Realty LLC. To the extent there would ever be any tax-exempt debt issued by the by the district, we would actually come before the city. It requires city written consent to do such thing, and the district would be about 25 years in duration. This is not the first community improvement district in the city of Warrenton. As you know, recently there was a Schnucks put in, and that's also a community improvement district. Completely different clients, but just has some background. So again, we come before you tonight to see if you will approve our petition to establish the Community Improvement District. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at all. And this was properly published for notice in accordance with the Missouri State statute. So this has been published for the last 2 weeks to give notice to the public about the potential district.
Questions?
No, I don't.
Published so well. Question. Well, I guess my only question would be, just so people have an understanding, is the district goes from the Rural King, where the Rural King is coming in, all the way over to the end of where the current buildings are for the shops of Warrenton. So it's no bigger than that, it's just that area.
Correct. So there was several. But this is just for RPA 1, and so that is just the outlet center and then the Rural King Realty. It's actually 3 tax parcels, but yes, you're correct in the boundaries. And a map of that was included in the publication as well as in the petition. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody from the public is allowed to come up and speak. Just state your name, and it's only on this topic for the Community Improvement District. But if you would, please come to the mic, state your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not seeing anybody. We'll go ahead and bring the public hearing section closed. Obviously, we're already in the regular agenda, so we'll move on to the next item. Next item would be the consent agenda.
We have the regular meeting minutes from March 5th, 2019, the work session minutes from February 28th, 2019 with the school board, the Ways and Means meeting minutes from March 5th, 2019. We have to award the general electrician bid to All American Handyman Applications, which was the only bid. Award the 9-vehicle carport bid to Premier Carports in the amount of $16,992.63, the low bid. Budget amount for this item was $19,000. Award the spreader tank bid to Imperial Industries in the amount of $35,271.90, the low bid. Budget amount for this item was $44,100. Award the paver trailer to Hall Trailer Sales in the amount of $8,239, the low bid. And award the paver bid to WM Knob in the amount of $42,855, the low bid, for a total of $62,119.04. Budget amount for both items is $75,400. An approval to purchase a 1-ton truck from Joe Mockins Ford in the amount of $56,399, which is the state bid. Budget amount is $56,900. An approval to purchase pipe and supplies for the Eric Hill water main extension from Core and Main in the amount of $23,453.68, the low bid. Budget amount was $35,000.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock. I'm going to go ahead and go with Alderman Deloy for a second. Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey is absent. Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one absent. Next is hearing from the public. If you have anything you'd like to present, please come to the podium. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak. You need to speak your name and then go ahead and state whatever you'd like to speak about. Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to the Board of Alderman comments. Anyone? Not seeing anything, we'll move on to the mayor's comments. I'll tell you, lately I've been getting a lot of great feedback on a lot of things that people have mentioned about building lately. So Mike, I just wanted to kind of recognize you and say thank you. A lot of people have commented on how, and Neil as well, been able to answer questions easily and quickly. Just a lot of people are making comments about they're seeing a lot of change that they like. So I appreciate it. Always like being able to share feedback when it's positive. Next, we'll hear from Steve Etcher on the Technical Training School.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Boulder Alderman. Appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you tonight about the proposal to create a Warren County Technical Training Center. Before I kind of get into the details of the current proposition that'll be on the ballot in April, I want to kind of give you a little backstory as to why this issue is so critical to our community today, and maybe even more so than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. But one that I think we have a responsibility for future generations to address, but I also think it's an enormous opportunity for this community to embrace some real positive change. Really, the idea started about a little over 2 years ago. Part of the responsibility with the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council is not only to attract new businesses to the community, but also to make sure those businesses that are here have every opportunity to grow and have the maximum amount of success that they can in our community. And what we've been hearing is a number of our businesses saying we are unable to grow because we cannot find the skilled workers that we need for critical positions in our production facilities. And unfortunately, that issue is not unique to Warren County. That's not an issue that's unique to this corridor. It's not unique to our state. It's not even unique to our country. There's an incredible shortage of talent workers for today's manufacturing processes. In fact, I was reading an article recently, and the author described it as a war on talent. that there is such a scarcity in the amount of talent that we need to be effective in our production processes that communities are going to go to war for that. Now, unfortunately, for those communities, many of them are just now picking up on this, that there is a battle for talent out there. The Warren County Economic Development Council has been working on this for about 2 years, incubating an idea to solve that. And what we did was we started listening to our existing employers. What do they need and what do they need? And so we put together, the EDC put together an exploratory committee. And this is a committee comprised of business leaders, community leaders, educators, and citizens to really kind of unwrap the issue, to understand what really is going on out there. What specifically are the needs? How do we quantify them? And what skills are necessary? To what extent is that problem within our communities? What is currently being done in and around our region that can provide this level of training? And then to identify specific gaps. And what we're finding was actually unnerving. There's not enough being done to provide technical training in and around our region. There's not enough of a pipeline supply to support the manufacturing concerns that we currently have, and we're stymieing our growth because of that. And we're finding that our top 10 employers have more than 100 positions currently unfilled because they cannot find skilled workers. Let that sink in. 100 workers. That is 100 paychecks that are not issued. That's 100 paychecks that are not cashed and spent in our local economies. That's 100 people that are making well above minimum wage that don't have a job because they don't have the skills. We've got to fix that. We've got to change that. And it's kind of, as we started down this process, my mind kind of went back and said, what made Warren County successful today? If you were to go back 50, 60, 70 years ago and say, what is it that made us grow the way we have grown, I contend that there are two key issues. Number one was the expansion and evolution of our transportation systems that allowed us to reach worldwide markets with the products that we produced here. But it also enabled and accommodated that westward expansion out of St. Louis metropolitan community, where people could live here and work in this city. So transportation had a huge part in the growth of our community, from the railroad tracks to the interstate systems. But the second and probably more critical element to help this community grow was the emergence of the manufacturing industry in our community, and probably none greater than the one right down the street known as Binkley Company. They came to this region because they saw something that we had that no other community around had, and that was a pipeline of talent that rivaled none. Nobody could hold a candle to kind of the work ethic and the work skills of our employment base back then. Why was that? I believe it's because we were going from an ag-based society into an industrial society. And those industries were looking out across the farm fields. They were seeing a field full of workers that had incredible skills. They knew how to build things. They knew how to fix things. They knew how to design things. They knew how to troubleshoot. And so they transitioned them from the farm field to the factory floors. And that really, I think, catapulted Warrenton's economy to where it is today. But we can't rely on that today. Our pipeline does not exist. We don't have that large expanse of farm workers with skills that we can move into the factory floor. We've got to take another approach. And so what we've done is try to figure out what is this approach that we can take that will really put our community well above the competition when it comes to competing for jobs and enabling our economy to grow. And so what we did was identified what our gap was, and then we reached out to the educational partners in and around our community. Who is doing what and who is willing to do what for our community? We interviewed private schools, we interviewed public schools, we interviewed trade schools and community colleges and four-year colleges to see who could grasp our vision for what we want to create here in Warren County, which is a hands-on technical training facility. You're not coming in here to get a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. The idea is you go in there, it's a very affordable, practical training that you leave with a certificate that says you know how to do A, B, and C, whether it's welding or programming or logistics or whatever the case might be. We wanted that to be the outcome. So we wanted to find an educational partner that had the resources and the time and the vision to make our reality their reality as well. And you've probably seen some of this in the newspaper over the past year or two. But after a lot of due diligence, the recommendation was pretty evident that we needed to realign the service areas of our community college. And in August of 2018, the state recognized the realignment of the extended service area for the R2 and the R3 school districts to be incorporated into the St. Charles Community College extended service area versus the East Central. St. Charles Community College presented themselves as an organization, had a tremendous amount of capacity to help us launch a technical school. We have a lot of students that currently go there. It's an easy commute to there. They have resources that they see being a good investment in our community, and we wanted to encourage that. So we took the first step to get the extended service area modified to include that. But it didn't stop there. They're committed to building a training facility here in our community. But to do that, we have to become part of their taxing district. So we've got a measure on the ballot on April 2nd asking for individuals to approve incorporating the R2 and the R3 geographies into the St. Charles Community College taxing district so they can actually help us launch this technical training facility here in Warren County. And we have gotten commitments from the community college, and they will put that in writing with a binding resolution at their board meeting on the 25th of March. They've made commitments that 100% of the tax dollars raised in Warren County will remain in Warren County and be used for facilities and training for the people that we need to serve here in Warren County. The levy, once we are part of their taxing district, the levy is 0.1796 cents per $100. What that equates to for your citizens is basically $34 of additional tax for every $100,000 of appraised value. That's what it's going to cost. But instead of focusing on the cost, I want to focus on the benefit, because I believe having a facility like this, which will be state-of-the-art, one of the more modern facilities in this part of the state, there's nothing that's going to be able to compete with us in the nearby marketplace. It's not going to be the cost that we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on the benefit, because we think it'll bring jobs, we think it'll drive up wages, we think it'll create new opportunities for the community. And that's why we're pushing really hard to get this initiative passed through. And we've got a strong partner with St. Charles Community College, and we believe they have the answers that we're looking for to create the programs that our businesses desperately need. We think this placement of a technical training center in the greater Warren County area will be transformative. I think 50 years from now, somebody's going to be standing right here having that same conversation. What was it that made Warren County grow? And they're going to look back and say, when they created a pipeline of highly skilled workers, that's what drove our economy for the next 50 years. And I think there's a great opportunity for our community to do that. We're ahead of the curve. We're ahead of many communities. This is an opportunity that is too rich in benefits to pass up. So that's kind of the overview of what we're doing and why we're doing it. If there's specific questions that you have about our approach or what's being proposed, I would welcome those questions this evening.
Well, one of the comments you hear a lot in the public is concern over where a physical facility would sit. I mean, if it's sitting on the edge of Warren County and the Wentzville area, it certainly doesn't feel like a Warren County project. So could you speak to that? And
I would love to.
The other question I'd like you to speak to is, you mentioned several times the support of St. Charles Community College, but you didn't mention the support of any of the local high schools or school boards. Have the school boards endorsed these projects?
Great. Let me start with the first one, and I'll get you a second one. The location. I can stand here and absolutely positively, confidently tell you the location of this facility will be in Warren County. That's as much specificity as we can provide right now, because until the resources are gathered, we're not going to go out there and secure the piece of land. But we will work very closely with the leadership at St. Charles Community College. They will have a local advisory team that will help them identify the most suitable location. And there's a list of criteria that they will evaluate to determine what is the most appropriate location for this type of facility. But it will be absolutely in Warren County. And it will not be, as you were told by other individuals, in Forestell. That was not a direction that St. Charles Community College has issued. That's not a direction that the committee has issued. That was somebody speaking without the regard to what our plan is. And the plan is we will vet the sites, we will find the best location, and it will be most likely in the heart of Warren County. But it will be in Warren County. The second question in relation to where did the local school boards sit on this and the local educators sit on this, we have been engaging the school districts since the beginning. Dr. Buck and Dr. Klingensmith and Dr. Jones have been very active in our committee, helping us direct our time and attention to those voids that exist. Because of the nature of what we're doing, this is an issue that was put forth on the ballot by the St. Charles Community College Board of Trustees, not the local boards of education, because of a state statute change. We tried to keep politics separate. We know that both of those school districts have issues that they want to address before the voters, so they have stopped shy of actually coming out as an entity and saying this is our initiative and we want to drive forward. We do have their very, very strong participation from their schools on this effort. In fact, the vision and the conversations have really been, once this gets launched, we need to link our high schools to that, so when our high school students who are not destined to a four-year college, you know, that last year of high school, if you're not going to college, you're kind of trying to fill out your schedule. in a way that you're not wasting your whole day. We would love to incorporate technical training into that work day, in that school day, so when they walk across the stage, they get a diploma and certificate that will allow them to go seek gainful employment. So I can't speak on behalf of the school boards. I can tell you there are a number of members on the boards of education that are involved with us and strongly supporting what we're doing.
Steve, I would just like to say on a personal note, I started at Binkley in 1969. In 1969, we had individuals who literally could not read or write. They made a mark on their time card to identify themselves. They were fabulous workers, but as you say, they came out of the farm fields. I was charged with hiring hundreds of workers over my 32 years there, and I can assure you that currently the demand for a skilled workforce is higher than it has ever been, and the candidates that are available are lower in numbers than ever. There are no avenues currently for technical training close to home for any of our students. There's a critical need for electricians, CNC operators, kids that can work on robotics, maintenance, the construction trade. We are sorely in need of all of those individuals, and I don't know where they're going to come from. The non-college bound students need work environments that don't say, do you want fries with that, or respond to clean up on aisle 6. I'm very concerned that that's where a lot of these kids are headed. I know the EDC is working tirelessly to bring businesses to our community, but I also know when these businesses look closely at the demographics of skilled workers, they won't find them here. And I am concerned, very concerned, that they will go elsewhere to build and staff these needs. And a lot of families are looking for ways to educate kids post-high school, and it's not there. So personally, I am very glad to see you guys working on this project.
Thank you. You just brought up 2 points that I really wanted to kind of maybe hit on as well. As we talked to the existing employers that told us, the top 10 said there's 100 jobs available now, they are petrified, terrified of what the future holds, because there's so many of the skilled workers they have that are going to be retiring out in 3, 5, and 10 years, and they have no idea where that replacement workforce is coming from. And then the second point is we have a lot of talent in this community. The problem is we don't keep them. They leave. In fact, the statistic that we just recently saw was 93% of the students who go to technical training and community colleges stay in the community in which they were trained. So when our best and brightest go even to a nearby community to get training, they don't come back. This would anchor them here in our community, and it would attract even more to our community as well.
So have you guys done projections on what you anticipate would be the increased number of students using this opportunity? Because currently the high school, the Warren County High School, sends students down, I believe, to the Washington area. I'm not sure if the number's in the 60 or 70 students or whatever it is. You guys sat down with the school board and talked about what the projected need is in terms of, you know, if you've got 70 kids going down now, is there a potential for 140 kids to go down? Has the school give you some kind of indication as to what they see there?
Sure, and that's a great question. It's a tough one to answer. Yes, we've had those conversations. We think the number of students who would seek technical training during high school years would definitely escalate as we have this opportunity before us. But as you recall, one of our primary goals was not only to make an affordable education opportunity, but we don't want to duplicate something that was already out there initially. Now, once this gets launched, yes, I see a very close partnership with the high schools to put the technical training right here in our own community. But right now, we're targeting postgraduate, post-high school, underemployed adults. we think that's where our primary audience is going to go. People who graduated, they realize, you know, out in the workforce, if I don't have skills, I don't have much of a paycheck, and that's the audience we're trying to improve their skills. In fact, this is such a big initiative with the state, they're actually freeing up resources to actually fund these types of efforts. And I think we're positioned to be able to attract a lot of the external dollars to our community to help launch this, either in terms of training programs or brick and mortar projects. In fact, the governor's key initiative right now is a fast track program to where adults 25 and over can qualify for scholarships, very similar to the A+ program. So if they're underemployed, they can come get the skills they need to be a really productive member of society. And that was another beauty of going with a community college, is you've not only got a reduced tuition rate, you also have that A+ eligibility opportunity there. So students who really want to pursue that can do it at low cost or no cost, and they can get a very good paying job and not have the burden of student debts holding them back for decades. But we have not quantified the number yet because that's not our primary initiative. But we do believe there's huge opportunities to grow that, not just with our local communities, but we think we have an opportunity to attract high school students in that final year from any of the surrounding districts, not just in Warren County, but even in western St. Charles County, who do not have access to technical training. So we think we would have a 20 to 40 mile draw of high school students.
Questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board of Aldermen, for your time. There's information out there on social media. Feel free. We got a landing page and a Facebook page. If you want more information, there's a whole bunch of frequently asked questions we've tried to answer in advance.
But why don't you go ahead and tell us what the actual...
If you go Warren County Prop J on Facebook, you'll find it. If you go to St. Charles Community College's website and just put /Prop J, it'll pull up everything that we put out there as basic information regarding the proposition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Steve. All right, next we'll hear from the City Administrator, Terry Thorne.
Thank you, Mayor. My first item for you this evening is a request for approval for a sewer study. There are two sewer studies on for approval. The first is for what we're calling the Sunnyside area. This is the area south of the new interchange, basically between the golf course and Sunnyside Road. We've begun annexation in that area, and there seems to be some interest for future development. This study would allow for us to examine what options there are for provision in the future of sanitary sewer services and what those potential costs might be. The second, in total for that study, is $12,900. The second component is the same type of study, but this would be for the area north of the new interchange, and it's basically about a 200-acre piece that is north of the most southern 50 acres. The 50 acres that's just north and connected to the North Outer Road, we already have a sewer study for that piece, but this is the area that would be north of that and covers the 200-acre piece north of that area. Again, it would examine what the options are for future provisions of sewer to that area and what the potential costs might be. Total for both of these is $26,800, and we have a budget amount of $55,000.
Well, it would seem that if we're serious about growing the interchange area north and south, that this is something we really need to do and start right away.
Yes.
Just to be clear on it, because it's presented as two different ways on the agenda, I believe we have to take them in two separate.
You could approve them together. Yeah, no problem. It's just an expenditure.
Make a motion that we approve the recommendation of management to spend $12,900 for a sewer study in the Sunnyside area south of the interchange, and that we spend $13,900 for a study north of the interchange, and that be paid to the Gonzalez Engineering Company.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Miller. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
5-0 with one absent.
My next item for you this evening is just discussion related to a request that we've received from a couple of different entities for a group discount on pool rates. Brady has done a lot of research in what other cities are doing for this particular thing, and we think we have a good solution. Typically, the requirement is that the group all attend at the same time, so it truly has to be a group function, and that there be a minimum number to the group, which some are 15, some are 10, but we feel like that our current 10 swim pass that we have available, which gives a discount off the daily rate of $4, gives $1 per swim, so it ends up being $3 per swim, and could be used all on the same day for 10 swimmers. So if you're looking at a minimum of 10 for a group discount, then they could purchase for $30 one 10 swim pass, and that would take care of the need for those groups. It becomes very murky when you start looking at who qualifies. Do they all have to be 501c organizations? This would be available to any group of 10 who were coming to the pool as a group and wanted to have some type of group discount. So the proposal for you is that we put this in place. It doesn't really require a new policy because it's already out there. This 10 swim pass or 10-day pass it's referred to, but it would certainly solve that question for those groups who are looking for some kind of a discount for group swimming.
Birthday parties, Terry?
No, not birthday parties. The request that we have been dealing with most recently is for the Olympics.
Oh, okay.
Swimmers, I think
Okay.
they have a swim team group that
Okay.
they're either putting together or have started. And so I think the question really started with them if they could get some kind of a discounted rate. And they would be a group that would be coming together along with their coach. The only suggestion would be that if you're going to bring a group of 10 or more, that you make sure that it's not a time that there's some kind of planned water aerobics that's taking up the entire pool, that sort of thing. But it really would not have to be a planned situation. Just avoid those particular times when the pool is really busy.
Okay.
I think with a lot of them, they do, well, for that type of a situation, they do try and schedule a time, if I remember right.
And that would be just a call to the pool to say, we want to bring a group of 10 or 15, and, is there a time that we should avoid on this particular day? So it's simple. It's something that's already out there. There's no deciding if a group qualifies or doesn't qualify because of their status. It's available to everyone.
Any questions on this? I'll entertain a motion to approve the group rate discount as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Dyer, seconded by Alderman Delloy. Roll call vote.
Dyer?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one absent.
My next item is just to inform you about an ordinance that's on later this evening. For a while now, we've been talking about the requirement, the new requirement by the Postal Service that in uprising subdivisions that are up and coming, that they now have cluster mailboxes as opposed to the traditional mailbox in front of each home. We experienced that with the area out close to our new pool park, and I think right now we still have some fairly unhappy residents because they've been living there for a while and they don't really have mailboxes. So we were trying to come up with a solution that would force the installation of some type of mail receptacle while we work to make sure that in the planning and zoning section of our code we've got all those requirements. So what we came up with was an addition. It's actually an addition to the International Building Code for 2015 that we recently adopted, and it basically puts the requirement in place such that the building official shall not issue an occupancy permit or temporary occupancy permit without an approved local mail receptacle. So it's simple, but it forces that mail to be there before someone comes to occupy a residence and then has no ability to receive their mail at their home or in their subdivision. So you will see in the future upcoming more in our code related to this, but this was the simple, immediate fix to get this problem solved so that we don't have more of this in the future. So there is an ordinance later on tonight for your approval that will put this in place.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Welcome. My next item for you is discussion related to the Turning Point request for funding that you received at the last meeting. You asked for additional information related to the $3,900 that is in our current operating budget for this fiscal year. That resulted from a request by the prior director of Turning Point, who came before the board, and it would have been at the same time last year while we were just starting the budget process. And her request was to supplement the amount that had come through the court to them up to an amount of $6,000. And she was of the impression that somehow an amount up to $6,000 had been promised to them annually for their Turning Point operation. The board did not recollect making that promise. We had no records of that, but did agree that they would look at the request at the time that the budget was being reviewed. At that point, you chose to include the $3,900 and you would give it future consideration prior to it actually being dispersed, and that's where we sit today. You had the new director here the last meeting asking for this money from the budget. She has provided the required audit, but certainly there was no agreement, either written or informal, that these funds would be dispersed just based upon the fact that it is in the budget. Today, they have received $2,700 for the 8 months of this fiscal year through the court. So really it is just a decision on how you want to proceed with dispersing that and how you wish to handle Turning Point in the future moving forward, if you want to make something additionally available to them other than just what is coming through the court cost.
I think one of the most difficult things we do is when we have not-for-profit groups who are providing an important service to the community, figuring out the method or the means or the logic for funding at what level you fund. For example, the funding to Agape has been historically long, and it's been a number that we've increased over time based on their results. The Senior Citizen Center we fund meals for, and it's based on a rate per meal, so it's very easy to calculate exactly what we owe them. And my feeling on this situation is, because we have the municipal court that's currently funding, we have a mechanism in place already to determine how much we are going to give toward the project. And I would hate to go away from a mechanism in place to something that's a little bit more arbitrary, because, you know, if you look at it and we feel like what the court's doing isn't quite sufficient, I would rather, if we're going to do anything, increase it by a percentage. So in other words, the court report says we're going to pay $2,000 for Turning Point based on their actual work that they did, where they keep records, then it would be easier to do a percentage increase than try to recalculate everything, because sat down there and looked at, you know, different ways you can compute costs and depending on audits and all this, and it just seems like a lot of work. So I'm inclined to stick with what we're doing with the municipal court, and if we want to discuss doing more money or a higher percentage based on the court records, that's a conversation we can have. But for right now, my thinking is the court's funding, and certainly if we gave $3,900 and we're already at a certain level through 4 months, we're going to go through the $6,000 if that was the understanding of the promise. So that's my suggestion as a council, is we simply use the court process to continue funding, and then we can talk about if that should be higher. We can talk about that at budget time, but that's where I'm at on the project.
One of my concerns was, and I think I understood her correctly, that they had a 48% increase in individuals that they were serving, but they had a 100% increase in staff. So I was a little bit concerned about those numbers and use of monies that they were given. So I agree with Gary. I think we need to maybe stay where we are.
I'll agree with that. The one thing that concerned me with, and I think I got this from her presentation, is I believe the number of individuals served from Warren County was 59. Does that sound correct? Some entities east of us that provide people or need people to come out here are not donating anything to the upkeep and the service that they provide. I'm not for increasing anything. I think they need to put pressure on the folks east of us to help carry the load and see how that works out. I'm not for.
I believe the consensus of the board seems to be we stay where we're at now and we'll reassess at budget time when we get into further talks with the budget.
Thank you. That's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Director of Planning and Development, Neil Fick.
Good evening. You have a copy of my report. I had the opportunity to meet a representative for the Boones Lake Regional Planning Commission, so we discussed some assistance programs, some things that will help obtaining grants. And I also had the opportunity to attend the town hall meeting, and it was a success. Brought together business owners and residents and gave them an opportunity to come up with some suggestions for changes on Main Street. And then currently I'm working on a Chandler subdivision, re-subdivision, which is over on Morgan Street.
Could you go back to your comments? I know there was a meeting of the downtown business group up at the high school. I was out of town, so I couldn't attend. Did other board members come and kind of give us some feedback?
Myself and Alderman Miller.
Attendance and what was brought up as potential ideas for downtown?
Yeah, I think probably there was close to 100 people attended, somewhere in that neighborhood. They come up with some good ideas. The main focus of the meeting was to gather information, and the gentleman from Missouri Main Street organization is taking that information and massaging it together, and he's going to be with us for the next 2 years in helping develop what he thinks and we think we need to do downtown. I, for one, would like to see an artist's rendition, whatever it is, to look at options that would help downtown as far as the existing structures, enhancing those, not doing away with them, but enhancing them. I think they have a lot of experience. They have a number of cities that they've worked with that they have successfully rehabbed and taken care of revitalization of their downtowns. I'm excited about it. I think everyone probably was there, came away pleased and excited that, first of all, we're doing something, but we also have plans in place with individuals that have been successful, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So this gentleman will be working with us on a regular basis to make sure that we are successful, and I believe we will be.
I don't have my notes with me, but springboard off of what Alderman Miller said. I believe the gentleman that was there from Main Street, Missouri, was actually instrumental in helping Excelsior Springs bounce back from when it was down and under. Presented his case, showed a lot of what the initiatives they took to kind of springboard back with dilapidated buildings or buildings that were slated for destruction due to misuse or non-care. But besides that, there again, what Alderman Miller had stated, we had several business owners, we had several people that were just interested in to be there. It was really nice to see the people that just came out, former people that have lived here, people that have moved back and want to see it back to where it was when they grew up here. And it was neat to hear the stories. It was neat to hear where they're at. The exercises we did basically to see how we could promote the downtown, how we could sustain the downtown. They broke us up into different groups. It was quite educating to me to see where we could go with it, what we could do with it. But there again, he's providing, he's pulling everything together that we talked about, discussing it. It was just one meeting of many that we're going to have. So this is just the first meeting. There's going to be several more we're going to invite to the public to, or I shouldn't say we are. The Downtown Association is going, Warrenton Downtown Association is going to invite people to attend to get them involved. One of the biggest things they walked away with was if you don't take ownership in it, you may not want to participate in it. So the hugest resounding thing they wanted to say was start taking ownership and support your small businesses. You know, visit them, see them, let them know that they're important in the community. And I think that's a huge thing, especially with internet sales going on right now. It's nice for a younger crowd. For myself, I can tell you at my age, I want it tangible in my hand when I go to the store and pick it up. That's just my age group. And hopefully it'll start becoming the young age group. But, you know, interest in that and show them, find some way to have a youth or a younger generation grab hold of what is theirs, because they're the ones that are going to proceed with this after we're not here.
Another city mayor that they were successful in helping to revitalize is Cape Girardeau.
Correct. So yes, it was very interesting.
Yes, it was.
You know, like I said, it's the first. They didn't say how many meetings, but it was the first of many. They said they'll be back. It sounded like it was going to be a couple months before they were looking at another one, unless I'm wrong on that. I believe it was a couple months. Like I said, I don't have my notes here. I wish I would have brought them, but I didn't.
Did he give you any indication of how city participation typically plays out in these scenarios? I mean, this is private ownership of buildings, but it's also an area where the city has interest in. So did he talk at all about that in either of those cases?
You know, he did. I think it was, he did speak, basically, if you don't have city participation, sometimes you're dead in the water. Because they're the ones that can help with codes, they can help with changes, they can help with incentives to revitalize that area or give maybe not business owners but property owners the incentive to update, to revitalize that area in one way, shape, or form, whether it's through beautification or whether it's through maybe even possibly re-insulating a building and giving some type of a tax break so you can recoup some of that money in a way. You know, so yes, he did speak on that, but you know, I think this meeting more was on the pressure of, hey, or not, I shouldn't say pressure, it's the wrong word, but it culminated more on the fact that we're starting off on a long process. Don't expect overnight change. You've got to start somewhere to get to the end result, and this is the initiation of starting. So, I mean, it was good to hear him say a lot of things because he spoke a lot of truths. He told a lot of people exactly what some didn't want to hear, which is it's not going to happen overnight. And I think people want it overnight. I think we've become a society that expects that. But, you know, he broke it down and really, you know, when you see, like what Alderman Miller said, 100 people there, you wish it was 500 because that message you wish could get out and people could understand that, you know, this is a lengthy process, but it's a process we all need to buy into and hold on for the ride. Answer that question. All right.
Next, I have, we have a representative for Warrenton High School alumni for the Cornhole special event.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie Myers, and I'm representing the Warrenton High School Alumni Association. This will be our third cornhole tournament, and we are asking, we went to the Planning and Zoning about a week and a half ago to get approval to have our event at the fairgrounds, and we received approval there, and we are just looking for your approval as well for us to have this cornhole event. The purpose of the event is to raise money that we use towards presenting scholarships to our seniors. As of late, we have also noticed that $1,000 is what we normally give as a scholarship amount, but that's only like a drop in the bucket and a way that we can maybe reach other more children other than just our seniors. We also are doing donations to the Wise Foundation for grants. So those are the two, that's what our organization is founded upon. And this is one of 3 of our events that we do. And we are asking for your permission to have this event on April 6th at the fairgrounds.
How many years have we done it?
This will be our third
Year.
for the cornhole, yeah.
Give a thumbs up, but I don't know if we can count that as a vote, can we?
Well, you can count my vote because I'm a Warrenton alumni, so I am supportive of this.
It would be a fun community event as well. And it's only $25 a team.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Wise Foundation auction as well because they are looking for some support.
Yep.
And so if there are people looking for tickets, I think there are still tickets available.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
trying to remember the date off the
April
top of my head.
13th.
There you go.
So,
She's a savior because I couldn't come up with
The
it.
week after the cornhole tournament.
yes.
That's the way to promote it. There you go.
Maybe since you're alum, you should make the motion.
Well, I do make the motion that we approve that event, the cornhole event on April 6th.
I'll second that. I'm not an alum, so, but I'll second it anyway.
Motion made by Alderman Dyer, seconded by Alderman Ock to approve the Warrenton High School Alumni Cornhole Tournament. Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with 1 absent.
All right, and I have 4 additional special events for the Warren County Fair Association, which is the car show, the demo derby, the horse show, and the Pride in Your Ride truck show.
Evening, esteemed members of the board. My name is Lloyd Weidman on behalf of the Warren County Fair Association, Fair Board member. We are looking for kind of a blanket permit to kind of help us expedite the process of getting events in motion a little bit quicker than in the past, and to give us ample time to be able to promote and to advertise these. So what we're asking for is those 4 events that you see listed in front of you, and any assistance that you can grant us would be greatly appreciated to the success of the events.
Questions for each event?
No, but I've been up here for more than 20 years. I've never been called esteemed, so I'm not sure what to take of that.
Caught you off
Yeah,
guard.
I'm a little scared.
Well, I was going to give a hug, but I didn't think that was appropriate.
Well, I mean, I think it's great that they were laid out ahead of time so we know because it seems like a tedious process when you do 1 month and another month you do another. So if we can streamline this and make it easier, I think that's a great thing. So.
I agree with you there that the process is tough, and we're a volunteer board.
Right.
We all carry jobs, so it's tough to always break away. I got called last minute because our president's driving a tractor trailer down the interstate right now. So that helps us speed that up, and also if we get the pre-approval on some of these too, it helps us be able to plan better, attract more people into the community. So thank you.
I like to see it streamlined like what we're doing. That's nice. Any other comments or questions? I'll Entertain a motion to approve the Warren County Fair Association proposed 2019 special events, including SCP-40, SCP-41, SCP-42, and SCP-43.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by, I'm going to go with Alderman Dyer. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one absent.
Thank you.
Folks, bear with us. Looks like our counselor's coming to the,
Now this is like it's serious. right?
this is the serious part.
Good evening. I'm sure you all are excited to hear from me. I will make a note that last meeting I did not say a word during the entire meeting, so I fully intend to make up for it tonight. So, we have on for your consideration the proposed Rural King. I know there's a lot of anticipation and excitement on this. This is site plan SP-129. You guys received the report from the planning and zoning officer regarding this development. It meets all the conditions of the municipal code. However, today we did get some modifications to the proposed site plan. We did review them with staff, and they are acceptable to staff, but I wanted to review, they're minor ones, but I wanted to review those, and also review the one condition that was put on the site plan. First and foremost, there was an error in the drawing of the building. It was represented as a 90,000 square foot building. It's actually an 85,000 square foot building. That is their standard architectural, kind of prefabbed architectural design. So there is a reduction here in of about 5,000 square feet of the building, and that was just I assume it was an error or an oversight. They corrected that today. There is also an area here that is in the revised drawing that they want to make outdoor storage, outdoor display. They want to expand for this little triangle here and this triangle here, the outdoor display, and round that off to make it a little bit more usable. And then out here, they want to take these 11 spaces and make it their outdoor display for tractors. And there's also with this decrease here, there's increase in the outdoor display. Now, those of you that have seen the Rural King in Warrenton or in Wentzville obviously know, see, I'm already saying it, obviously know that outdoor display is a big part of their business and a big part of their marketing plan. We've reviewed it with staff, and we do not see any issues with regards to safety or drive lanes or whatnot. At the planning and zoning meeting, there was a concern raised about the number of parking spaces, and to address that, they have as you guys are aware, the shops of Warrenton are on this side to the east, and they have a cross-access parking agreement that will allow them to utilize all the parking space here. That, under our code, is counted towards the spaces as well. So, obviously, as you guys are familiar with the shops of Warrenton, parking is not an issue. They do have a landscaping plan that has been submitted and does comply with our landscaping plan. And the last thing is that there is a request to donate into the sidewalk fund a portion of it. And Terry, do you remember, Neil, you remember what the amount was?
$3,690.
$3,690? Okay. And one of the things that staff is okay with that is because there's actually a very limited area, because unlike most developments, this is just not a corner or an area that has a frontage that can have sidewalks. This all has the shops of Warrenton already in place. So the idea is, Melody, can you scroll up a little bit to show the sidewalk area? And I believe, Terry, this is the sidewalk area, right?
No, that's really the only place if they were to have a sidewalk, but we feel like the sidewalk should be on the other side of Rural King Way, so that any pedestrian is not crossing that truck entrance to the loading area.
This is the truck entrance to the loading area, so they're asking for a donation in lieu of it, and we think we can probably, in this area, as this develops, utilize that effectively towards other sidewalks to access and move around.
Yeah, I think you're right, because, I mean, the sidewalk going to the shops in Warrenton plus Rural King is going to be a key, and I think we just need to try to accumulate funds and then make sure whatever we do is most effective for the dollars that are invested by the owners.
And as far as the overpass, there are sidewalks over the overpass, but this is really the only piece that is like kind of the leftover piece from the shops of Warrenton. And so the new development will be new planning, new map, or new parking lots and whatnot, and so it'll kind of be a little bit easier to engineer the sidewalks that go into place. So the engineer from Rural King is here, the attorney from Rural King is here as well if you guys have any questions. And like I said, staff reviewed these revisions to the site plan. We have no issues with them, and we are asking you to approve the revised site plan tonight. I did want to mention one more thing. There was a condition put on at the planning and zoning level that the outdoor space, because of, at the time, we did not know about the cross-access parking agreement. Obviously, we assumed they could utilize the parking that was at the shops of Warrenton, but we didn't want to take that into account or assume that completely without the agreement in hand. There was a condition recommended by Planning and Zoning that the outdoor display be limited as demarcated on the site plan. I am asking that you guys remove that condition as unnecessary. They will be bound by their site plan, but if they do want to have some additional seasonal display, we didn't want to make that a necessarily stated condition of the site plan.
Well, Kristen, we already have a written agreement with those adjacent shops to share the parking.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
If they've agreed to this, then
Yes.
Rural King should be able to share whatever parking.
They have agreed to it,
need
and they
for
have
their-
even a separate agreement for it. So
Right.
there should be plenty of parking because I think we all believe this will be a very busy new development and
Yes.
hope that it will be a very busy new development.
So, and I'm in agreement with the removal. So I'm looking at the bill, so section 1, part number 2 talks about the outdoor display shall not expand beyond. So when we approve the bill later, we would just make a motion to have that part removed.
Yes, stricken from the bill. Yes, that would be my request. It's unnecessary, and I think it'll ultimately be confusing. Okay.
I have a question
Yes,
for
sir.
one of the gentlemen, I don't know which one.
Engineer, attorney.
I have a number of people that's asking me, are you still planning on opening in 2019?
The business folks are in charge of that.
And we did have a conversation, if I could jump in, with Rural King representatives tonight before the meeting as we received this. And obviously, I don't know when they plan on starting construction, but we were informed that if we could get this approved tonight, that would be their preference, because their desire, there would be a 4-week plan to re-engineer, or 4 weeks to re-engineer the building to be 90,000 square feet, and they do not want a 4-week delay to begin breaking ground. So it appeared from their intentions that they want to get this approval as soon as possible so they can begin the process of grading and clearing the land for construction.
Still anticipate on opening this year yet?
I would assume that if they're intending, if they're concerned about a 4-week delay that would occur from this having to change the size of the building, I would anticipate they're excited to get it up and running and constructed and operational.
Thank you.
So that will come up on a bill later tonight for your approval.
Thank you.
Go back to the agenda.
Any further questions? All right. Begin the next one.
Yes, fortunately for you, Mayor, I am up here to speak on the next one.
I'm all ears.
Okay. The next one we have is the McRoberts Motors conditional use permit. I think that's the site plan. Melody, can you go back to the CUP?
Well, she's finding that for us who have failing memories. Can you talk just briefly about the difference when we consider conditional use versus site plan?
Okay, so the conditional use permit is really what it essentially is it says, and our code does a good job defining it, but what it essentially is it's approving a use. It's saying we're okay with this use in this area, except you have the right to, you're reserving the right to instill additional development conditions. There's disallowed uses, allowed uses, and conditional uses. So, you know, there have been occasions in the past where it just wasn't right for a particular piece of property where conditional use permits have been voted down, but generally the courts look at conditional use permits as essentially approved uses, but you can instill additional developmental conditions on the property. A site plan is really just, here's our criteria, this is how we want to lay this out. It's more of an administrative approval process, although we have kind of a quasi-administrative approval process because you can put conditions on a site plan. The conditional use permit is a legislative process. So we have, and I believe there's representatives, Bart's here, from Lewis and Beatty's here to answer questions, and he typically likes to speak after me, and Mr. McRoberts is here, but I do want to go over the planning and zoning report from that project, because we went back and we listened to the video. I think it was a little bit confusing from time to time. There was a little bit of unanticipated consideration, because when the project came in, and this is at no fault on the applicant, I think it just was not communicated at the time, that there will be the sale of ATVs on the property. It came in as a used vehicle automobile repair conditional use permit request. At the meeting it came up that there were ATVs. So there was some discussion in planning zoning. There was some additional discussion at the staff level. Staff does have some recommendations on this conditional use permit that are slightly different than some of the conditions that were recommended at the planning and zoning based on reviewing the planning and zoning meeting. And I just want to go through those real quick and kind of give you an idea of why staff is recommending these additional conditions if it's approved. The first one is obviously the planning and zoning recommended all vehicles waiting to be made ready for sale to be placed in the back fenced area and out of the sight line. Because of the high visibility location of this, and these vehicles we're assuming are going to be unlicensed or in some limited state of disrepair, staff feels that it's important to consider that recommendation and for the board to make that a condition of the conditional use permit. After review and going out and looking at the site and reviewing the tape, there was, I think, a little bit of confusion. There was a recommendation made regarding site-proof fencing for the fenced-in area. There was some discussion about that. However, when we reviewed the actual motion and what was approved, even though the chairman restated that as part of the motion, it was not part of the original motion. So staff is recommending, based on the review, that the review of planning and zoning's recommendation that site-proof fencing be made a condition of that area, and the concept being that, you know, if it's site-proof, then people won't see cars in various states of disrepair. Although not significant, one of the things that is important to consider about a conditional use permit is that it does run with the land. It is not specific to this property owner, and our hopes is Mr. McRoberts is very successful in his business ventures in Warrenton. However, part of our job is to also consider future property owners that may want to run an automobile repair business. So this is our opportunity to restrict the site visibility of those vehicles. So staff is recommending site-proof fencing for the fenced-in area.
You said that was not part of the conditional use as the ordinance draws.
That's correct. When we went back and listened to it, it was not part of the original motion. When the motion was restated by the chairman, he included the site-proof fencing, but it was not part of the original motion. So we just want to clarify that, and I know they're aware that that was part of the discussion, but staff is recommending that be made a condition of the conditional use permit. Staff is recommending the P&Z recommendation that no disassembled vehicles be allowed on the premises. Once again, that's not really a concern about Mr. McRoberts' development, but we want to make sure that this does not primarily become an automobile repair shop when what he is doing is primarily a used vehicle sales, where he brings cars in, does some minor, work on them, and then puts them out on the lot for sale. But staff does feel strongly that that's an important condition for future land use. Staff is recommending a condition that the city require the parking lot to be paved and the fenced-in area to be gravel per the site plan. There was a statement by the applicant that he does wish and may intend to pave that. Staff does not feel that it's necessary to make that a requirement that be paved. Obviously, it would be nice if it was paved, but they do want to make sure that the parking lot is paved. Staff had a lengthy discussion about the ATV, UTV sales because that was not part of the original application. That was just brought up at the meeting. Staff is recommending that no vehicles or UTVs be parked on the grass. The concern here is it's Veterans Memorial Parkway. It's a busy street. Hopefully it continues to get busier. Our hope is that there's not a distraction because there's a UTV or ATV parked in the grass or any type of safety risk, because there's a large right-of-way area, between the property and their property. So, that it stays on their property and not in the grass.
I think that's important because I know some of the businesses that are currently there, they have a tendency to move some of the equipment closer to the pavement, and then you have line of sight issues when people come out of Middletown Road. A lot of them are complaining with the business right there move some of their equipment farther, that they have no line of sight to safely get out of Middletown Road. So I think that's a good consideration.
And as property redevelops in that area where there is equipment sales, the intent will be to push it back onto the property, out of the grass, on the paved area, so there's a clear delineation, so nobody's getting a competitive advantage, but it's not creating a safety risk that's there. The additional condition we discussed, there is a concern that, okay, McRoberts Motors or Hard Automotive goes out of business, so their property is sold to an automobile repair. This is not presented as a full automobile repair or paint shop or body shop or anything like that, but considering future land uses, staff is requesting that the city impose a condition to require that repairs or service may only occur on vehicles owned by the business. So this would be a situation where there would be a dealer's license. He takes cars, my understanding is takes fleet's vehicles in, he owns them, he's repairing them and turning them around for sale. This would exclude vehicles coming from the outside to get their oil changed there, tires rotated, engines swapped out, some of the things that can kind of create some visual accumulation of debris and automobiles. So we are asking that condition be imposed. We also discussed, since one of the things that was stated at the meeting was tires will be changed, and we were asking for a condition to require storage of tires for disposal to be inside the building or in an enclosed structure so they do not accumulate water and hence prevent, the growing mosquito problem.
I'm going to interrupt for a minute. Bart, you might as well sit down. It's going to be a little bit.
I got one more.
Save your legs.
I got one more, Bart. I'm sure Bart will have something to say. And then finally, there was a discussion at length, and we did speak with some of the neighbors on the property. One of the things that came up discussion, and I think it was just kind of spur of the moment, so we didn't really have a lot of time as staff to consider it. There was a question with regards to, will the ATVs or UTVs be test driven? And the road that is there, Progress Parkway, is a private road. It is gravel. It is not improved. And it is busy. There is a lot of traffic that comes in and out of there because of the K4 Fitness, and there's an automobile paint shop down there. Staff feels very strongly that the city should require and restrict the property owner from allowing test driving of UTVs on Progress Parkway. When we look at this is an acre lot. It appears as though there should be an ability to start up and take an ATV around the parking lot in there, or within the confines of the property, that they can consider something there, because driving up and down on Progress Parkway, although it's not a city street, we do have the right to restrict that in the conditional use permit, and we do feel that it's very important because we do not want it to spill out under Veterans Memorial. We want it confined to the 1 acre piece of property on which they're considering test driving.
We can, I didn't realize we could put conditions on private roads.
We can. They own a portion of it, and it is something that is a use of the property that was brought out in the planning and zoning, and we can absolutely restrict the property owner from allowing his product to be exercised or used within the private property in the consideration of sales. And we talked a little bit about that. I know their preference is probably to allow it on Progress Parkway, but looking at the condition of the street, gravel in nature, and the traffic that is there, you know, it's our recommendation that it be confined to the property itself. We think that's the safest and fairest way, and remember, Veterans Memorial is right there. So this is what staff reviewed. There is a list in your report that includes these staff recommendations, you know, with regards to some additional conditions. And a lot of it is generated not specifically to Mr. McRoberts' property, but considering the long-range impact of a conditional use on this property and a subsequent property owner owning it, with what rights we will be giving him, to just make sure we control this. And nobody hopes Mr. McRoberts, we all hope his business is successful. And, you know, in looking at his business in Florissant, it's a clean, nice operation. It's exactly what he presented, but it's not to really restrict Mr. McRoberts, but to make sure that, you know, we're granting a limited property use right as you're allowed to do with a conditional use permit. That's all I have, and I know that Mr. Corman is, I'm certainly here to talk about it.
Thank you, and for the record, Bart Corman with Lewis and Beatty Surveyors and Engineers. As Chris did introduce, Scott and Melanie McRoberts with McRoberts Motors. Present to you the site plan, or actually I guess we're on the conditional use at this moment in time. My clients were acceptable to the conditional use motion that was made at the planning and zoning meeting. The site-proof fencing was discussed at the meeting. It was not in the motion. We also had an after meeting. It was not an official meeting, but with the owners of K4 Fitness, after the meeting, they expressed a concern that they would like to make sure that it was visible fencing, so that their business was not blocked. And I think I've even brought Mr. Fick in to witness their testimony on that, just as a reminder in case it came up again, like it did. So that.
So we stop for a second. So your position is that the fencing should be, you could like say chain link with no slats in it, so you couldn't see, and that's what K1 thought would be better.
Yes.
Didn't we have this recently come up at a storage facility north on the North 70? There was some discussion and I think some involvement on the police in terms of what would be the most safest or best way to handle that.
We did have staff look at that, and staff's conclusion was, as far as safety goes, site-proof versus, you know, open fencing was not a safety concern. It's a matter of access, whether the fence is site-proof or not, with regards to the storage unit. And their position on it was, if it's site-proof or not, whether I see them or not, it's whether or not we have a key to get access in there to go in there and do it. So, you know, like, staff's concern is more about, this is on Veterans Memorial Parkway. I realize there's probably some additional costs. They want to be there for more visibility. And as this area develops, the concern was making sure that these cars that are being prepped for sale, that do have at least some limited mechanical issues, are kept confined so the public doesn't see them until they're ready for showtime.
Well, I was just a little concerned that this is truly in a prime development area for us, and going to be extremely visible from I-70, and I think I would want to be sure that all of those vehicles were obscured from view. I don't understand why K4 thinks that would be unacceptable to them, Bart. Can you?
Because it would. They were concerned of the visibility of their business back there, the back one, not the new one, the old one. Okay. As well as, you know, Scott also preferred not to have site-proof fencing in our discussion. So that was it was preferred not to. So anyway.
You could miss not seeing that.
Yeah.
You know.
Same way.
Well, if we put a fence in front of it, yeah, it'll block it. So anyway, but the two conditions that were put on originally were acceptable. The new suggestion of no vehicles or UTVs on the grass, that is a concern as well. The vehicles, are fine. The UTVs, that they're made to go on the grass. So if there was if that condition was put on, I'd recommend maybe no longer than 24 hours, so that we can bring them out there temporary for display, or nothing in the grass in front of the sidewalk, because it would be closer to the lot anyway. So your sight distance situation and everything else would be fine. It would still be on the 1 acre tract. It would not be in the right of way by any means. So if something to that effect, condition, was something that the board did want to put on, I'd recommend it, or we'd be more acceptable if it was nothing in the grass in front of the sidewalk. So.
When you say in front of the sidewalk, you're talking about, what does that mean?
Sure. If you refer to the site plan that is presented,
Right behind you, Bart.
yeah,
Behind you.
there you go.
Just be easier for everyone to see.
Hey Bart, there's a laser pointer in there underneath.
All right.
Or high tech.
Now, whether or not I can use it or not. Okay, so this dark line here is the right-of-way line. So that's their property line. About 8 foot back is the start of the sidewalk. Okay, and the sidewalk's about 4 foot deep, and then from there to here is going to be grassed area. Okay, and so there's a 20-foot easement. So you can see that dashed line there is 20 foot. So that's 20 foot of their property. And then there's still another 20 to 30 foot of grass area before we get to the actual pavement where the automobiles will be on the lot.
They're asking to be allowed to park the UTV, ATV, whatever it is, on the grassed area and keep them out for 24 hours?
Yeah, because they're not going to leave them. They're not going to leave them out there overnight because someone could steal them. But during the day for display, they'd like to be able to put them out there up front.
Just during business hours?
During business hours.
And Bart, do you know how many UTVs or ATVs, that was the other question that I forgot to bring up, how many they intend to put out on display?
Probably 4 to 6 at the most, or what are some of our, about a half a dozen at the most.
Yeah, that was the other concern, is how much is going to be pushed up there.
And I'm not as concerned about that if the ATVs are really close to Progress Parkway, you have to make a right turn to get out, or it blocks vision, then is that problematic? But if there was just a handful and they were more centered in that area, it's not an issue.
Right, and that's why I suggested behind the sidewalk, because the sidewalk does sit back, so it would give you the visibility for everything. And that would be something that's easily identified in the site and enforceable for code enforcement. So, get me back to my notes then. The suggested restriction for repairs and service of vehicles only owned by the business, that one is a concern too. They'd like to have that flexibility if they wanted to rent out a bay and have some of that. It's not in their normal plan. Or to repair, something, or a vehicle comes back. Officially, they don't even own it at that time if they didn't do a warranty work or something. So that's a concern, and that's the condition that's required, is that part. The auto sales is already a permitted use, so that's the part that's asking for a condition. So if that's restricted that much, then that's, pretty restrictive actually on the request. But
well, Bart, I just want to point out, what was said at planning and zoning by your client was minor repairs to vehicles being prepped for sale. There was never any statement about any significant repair when that was asked during the planning and zoning meeting during the public hearing. And also, there was no comment about renting out a bay for repairs.
And that was I just gave that. That was not their intent.
Yeah,
sorry.
That was the question. So that was what staff's concern was, future use, not really, because that was trying to customize that to what your client wanted to do, but yet make sure that people weren't dropping engines in the bay, and I know you can say, we're not going to do that, but you can't promise what the next property owner could or may do. And, people say all the time, we're not going to do it. So that was a concern that this is a kind of a primary use of motor vehicle sales with an accessory use of minor repairs, oil changes, tire rotations, or tire changes, and brake jobs. That's what, we went back and listened to the tape, that's what it was. And our thought process was these are vehicles that are owned by your client, may not be titled in your client's name, but they're owned by your client, and he's repairing those. So I don't really understand why that's a problem, that condition.
Well, the allowing of minor repairs was discussed. Come on up, Scott.
Can I interject a thought here? So we're putting a variance on for own because we're concerned that the next owner would start running a repair business, which we don't want run there. But is it an issue if the variance were to say that it has to be titled by the company or sold by the company within a certain time period? In other words, so let's say you sell something to somebody and they're 30 days out and wheels are out of balance, or there's something minor. To me, we're not trying to restrict you from fixing the product, but we're just concerned about in the future something. So could we play around with the variance?
I mean, we could, play around.
Too much.
Yeah, I'm out of time. I told you that was going to happen.
Put a quarter in. It'll work.
We can definitely play around with that language. I don't know that it would be ready for approval tonight, but we could work with them to kind of, what we tried to do was understand what they were doing and kind of alleviate some of the concerns. So yeah, we could play with that. I don't think I could come up with the language on the fly tonight.
I wouldn't want to restrict him from being able to service a car that had some minor issues, and the person brought it back and were upset, and there was something he could do to make it right. I don't know if you sell it with warranties or whatever it is. I think we can't. I would feel bad to impose that on the business. That makes a lot of sense.
Good evening. Nice to meet you all. I'm Scott McRoberts, owner of Hart Automotive and soon to be McRoberts Motors. I think it's important that everybody understands what we do. The big store in Florissant is 7,500 square feet. We do everything mechanical there. Tires, exhaust, engine, transmission, we do everything in that store. If I would happen to purchase a car that would need a big, huge repair like an engine, which it has happened, unfortunately, that would go to the big store. The small store here in Warrenton will not be equipped, will not have the space, will not have the equipment to do that. So I would transport that to Florissant, where we've been there in that location for 50 years. The store here will obviously go under our dealer license, so I will obtain cars with a dealer's license. They do not have to be titled in the name of, McRoberts Motors, Hart Automotive. But those cars require minimal repairs. We're talking tires, maybe brakes. Sometimes I got to put struts on, rarely. Air filters, cabin air filters, minimal repairs. The cars that come in, they are driven in when they're back in behind the fenced lot. They will not be in a torn down condition like a body shop. They will not have suspension out of them and parts laying everywhere. So the cars behind the gate will look like the cars in front of the gate, with the exception of they won't be as clean as the cars out front. Okay, so that's kind of what we need. I need to have the flexibility because we do give, regardless of mileage on the car, we give a 6-month, 6,000-mile warranty. So if somebody has an issue, I need them to come back to me, especially if they're in Warrenton. If it's a purchaser over, in the St. Louis area, well, I can send them to the big store there. But if they purchase from Warrenton and surrounding areas, then I need to have the flexibility of them coming back and doing minor repairs. The other minor repair issue is, if I have an on-staff mechanic here, I would like to have the flexibility of taking in some outside repair, minor repair. I will not be equipped to do major repairs in that facility. It's not big enough. But if somebody is over at K4 Fitness and they want to get an oil change or they want to get a set of tires, I'd like to be able to sell them that. And I want to bring up the other thing about tires that I think you brought up. The tire issue, I have tire disposal at the Florissant location. I'm not opposed to taking tires whenever I get a truckload. I have a huge truck. Whenever I get a load of tires, I'm not opposed to taking those tires into Florissant and have them properly disposed of, because I have a tire shredder that comes in and he takes them. I have to pay him to haul them off, but so that's how we can work the tire issue. Anything else? I'm trying to go by memory. Fencing, yes, K4 did say something about, they just said, man, we don't want to see a privacy fence go up because we're concerned it's going to block our view back there. If you guys want a privacy fence, I'll put a privacy fence up. I don't really think it's necessary, because I think what you're after is you don't want unsightly vehicles being seen back there. It's not going to be unsightly. It's going to be clean. It's going to be well taken care of. So we are a business that's been in the automotive business, just for your reference, for 71 years. We've been around a long time and plan on staying around quite a longer.
Did you hear what he said?
Oh,
You don't look that old.
second generation.
Second
Thank you. Any other questions?
Questions or concerns?
Oh, Bart reminded me about the issue on Progress Parkway. Yes, I would like to be able to take them up and down Progress Parkway on that gravel area that, you know, that we own part of it, I guess, but I would like to be able to have the flexibility of taking some of those. I understand we can't get on to Veterans Memorial Parkway. I understand that. My parking lot, I'm not sure it's going to be big enough when cars are in there. Maybe it is, that I can buzz people around, you know, take them for a test drive. And myself or one of my staff will be with them, you know, so it's not like we're going to be turning someone loose that doesn't want to operate one of the, they are UTVs, utility vehicles, side-by-sides. We don't anticipate selling ATVs. ATVs, you sit on them, you straddle them, handlebars. We're looking at UTVs. That's what we're going to be selling. So I would like that as a consideration.
There's a state law that requires you to have permission to drive on a private road, and you'd have to have permission from everyone, and we've got some concerns that not everyone agrees with that, so you wouldn't have permission to drive on a road.
So I would not have permission.
That's correct. Correct.
Well, but Bart, you know, I mean, and part of what we did, Mr. McRoberts, because you did a great job presenting at Planning and Zoning, was, you know, taking your feedback to make sure because staff fully supports it, but taking your feedback to make sure that we carved it out. Like, as you, I think you'll acknowledge that nothing was said at Planning and Zoning about doing outside repairs at Planning and Zoning. It was, I'm just going to do repairs, minor repairs on my own vehicles, which is what you said tonight, which is a little bit different than what was presented. And I'm the last person that probably knows the difference between a UTV and ATV. I think everybody in here will acknowledge that. But the concern about driving on Progress Parkway is it is not a road that is paved that is in the best condition. And there is a lot of traffic that goes back there for the K4 Fitness, a lot of kids getting in and out. And just looking at it and doing an observation on it, it would be less concerning if it was paved, but it's not. And, you know, there are a lot of businesses back there, and so we are recommending that as a condition that, that it be restricted off Progress Parkway, just purely based on the safety consideration. And, you know, the sight lines, people turning into K4 during certain times, and it's a UTV that may or may not have the, you know, street legal safety equipment. It's really a safety concern with regards to that. You know, as Neil said, there were some property owners that did voice some objections and did not want that, but ultimately that's your, you know, if you want to get permission, that's not the city's, you know, right to try to impose private land rights. It's purely just from a safety consideration. We think it's better to remain on the property, and that's our recommendation. Ultimately, you guys decide on that. But those were staff responses, because it was a lot of information that came out that night that we weren't necessarily aware was part of the project. And part of the conditions, Mr. McRoberts, I understand you may not do it, but understand part of what we have to do is this will run with the land. There's the one automobile sales place right off Highway 70 that I think is the third iteration of a used automobile lot. So, it's also making sure that, somebody can't buy it and then run a full-fledged auto repair shop with a really big parking lot that may have junk vehicles. So that was the concern that we had.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if we could, maybe the way to approach this is to take each one of the staff recommendations and address them individually to come up with some final product, because there's a lot of stuff here. And, some of the staff recommendations I support, some of them I think should be modified, some of them I still don't know where my position is, but it would certainly be easier if we took each one of those recommendations and discussed it as a board, see if we can come up with consensus on that recommendation, and then move to the next one and the next one. That might be the way to approach this. It's your call since you're running the meeting. But
I would full-heartedly agree. I've tried to keep up with it, and I can tell you I'm not keeping up with it.
What was the first recommendation of your list?
It was the planning and zoning recommendation for all vehicles waiting to be made ready for sale to be placed in the back fenced area and out of sight line. I don't believe there's any controversy or disagreement with that.
No.
So you agree they should be in the fenced area? But the disagreement is, should the fence be?
The second one is site-proof fencing for the entire area. And that was really based on the area of development. I mean, I understand K4 Fitness. It's not a huge area that's going to be fenced in, and it is a large building. I don't know that it's going to have that much of a detrimental effect to the green building. Plus, the grade goes down, Bart, from...
But that's what we need to decide.
Yeah.
So, as Alderman, do we feel like the site-proof fencing is something that we want to put as a condition, or is it something we don't have a horse in the race?
Not up for a vote. We just need to weigh in on it for discussion purposes.
I'm not for requiring site-proof fencing. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's a non-issue for me.
I would agree with that.
Well, aesthetically, I would prefer that it would be through there.
Young Scott.
I think Scott's looking at the site plan itself.
I don't know that a site-proof fence is necessary.
And I would concur with that. So I think we got consensus on the site-proof piece. That's not going to be a requirement.
The next one is the planning and zoning recommendation that Bart already said they were in agreement with, that no disassembled vehicles are located on the premises.
That's
That's fine, right, Bart? Okay.
good point.
The next one is require the parking lot to be paved and the fence area to at least be gravel per the site plan.
Right, that's compliance with the site plan, so that's fine.
Require that no vehicles or UTVs, not ATVs, side by side, to be parked on the grass, and I think the modification is not be parked between the grass and the Veterans Memorial Parkway right-of-way.
The sidewalk and
behind the sidewalk and the
parking. Probably the best way is no parking on the grass between the sidewalk and Veterans Memorial Parkway.
Yeah, I think
Parking in
that's
the grass behind the sidewalk as established.
Yeah, so
No parking
no
there.
parking north of the sidewalk.
North of the sidewalk.
parking north.
So we have to decide if the grass parking is something that we have an issue with or we don't.
I will tell you, when you look at the site plan, our concern was really in front of the sidewalk, because that really pushes, from a safety perspective. I think the only thing, I think Bart's right, that pushes it back pretty significantly, because there is it's like a slow race for equipment to be pushed up towards Veterans Memorial Parkway over time. But the other question is the aesthetics of parking it. So the other suggestion was just during business hours.
And I agree with that, because number one, I will not leave UTVs. UTVs that are on the site, they will be pulled inside the building at night. I'm not going to leave them outside. I don't want to. And secondly, I don't want them up close to the road, because what if someone runs off the road and runs into one of them? So I don't want them up there close. I want them probably just off of my blacktop in the grass area, but I definitely will not get them close to the road for that reason, just because.
I think the other issue you have, if you pile up the grass area with a lot of UTVs, the visibility of the cars in your lot is going to be hindered. So what do you want to sell, a UTV or a car? You probably want to sell a car.
I honestly only see maybe a couple UTVs up there. Is really all I see, is maybe 2 up there, and the rest of them will be back on the lot under the awning.
I think, would we agree that during business hours solves that problem? Is that?
I can live with that. I think the sidewalk serves as a natural barrier, so I could live with during business hours. That's me. There's 2 of us.
I agree with that.
All right, everybody's in
All right,
agreement.
so no parking north of the sidewalk, and only during business hours for parking the UTVs. And then this is the big one: require that repairs or service may occur only to vehicles owned by the business. And the way we did consider the fact that they may not have it titled in their name, but it's still owned by McRoberts or Hart. But the real concern about this is, where is the fine line to the bays becoming automobile repair, and what's the future land use? We unfortunately we have to instill some controls if you don't want this to become 5 years from now, if Hart Auto something happens, an automobile repair shop.
I think we need to remember and add to that, as he mentioned, the need to do warranty work on vehicles.
Owned by so it would be require that repairs or service may occur only into vehicles owned by the business or serviced pursuant to a vehicle warranty.
Mr. McRoberts, did you want to address the other issue you brought up?
Yes, I would. Yes, I understand the warranty issue. I certainly want to be able to bring, if they're local, within 20 miles, and I sell a car, I certainly want them to be able to come here and not drive 47 miles to Florissant, to get warranty work done. So I want to be as user-friendly to the purchasers as possible. I do, however, if I'm going to have an on-staff mechanic there, I do want to be able to, part of when Melanie and I originally thought this up is, number one is going to be car sales there. Number two, sell a few UTVs. Number three, what if we did take in some light mechanical work? Somebody bought a car from us. It's not a warranty issue, but they like doing business with us. And they say, hey, Scott, hey, Melanie, you guys sell tires. Can I get my oil changes done here? Can I get light maintenance? I'd like to have that flexibility of being able to service my customer after the sale. But again, I won't do anything that's a major repair that would require a torn down vehicle that, any big repairs. I'm not equipped for it. That facility's not equipped for it.
Well, here's where I'm at on that. I don't have any issue with you selling the car. I don't have any issue with you doing repairs on the warranty. I really don't have any issue if that person who previously bought the car wants to get oil changes there. But where I'm at on the other side of it is general people coming in from the public. That wasn't part of the application. So as it's not being part of the application, I think we're kind of usurping the role of the the P&Z committee who really would make a determination more about the repair police, and I would prefer that part of it. If you want to come back later and throw out an application that talks about car repair as opposed to car sales, I think that would be a consideration. But where I'm at is I don't know if we want to consider that as part of it right now. At least that's where I'm at. Is that reasonable or not reasonable?
Alderman,
Yeah.
I'd like to put out, I don't know if this mic, how to turn this on or what. There we go. On the conditional use application, it asked for proposed conditional use, and it was written motor vehicle service and repair, because that's the requirement for the conditional use.
But, Mr. Corman, that's not what was represented by you guys at the public hearing planning and zoning, not what they considered, because the concern is, consistent with the comp plan, is should this be a location for a automobile repair shop? You know, I get it. I don't have any belief that Mr. McRoberts is going to do that, but is that the right location? And that's what the concern from staff is we want to make sure it's very tight because of its visibility and location on Veterans Memorial.
And that's understandable, and that's why it's a condition to be able to do that here in town, so, in that zoning.
Yeah, and I would agree with the councilor's position. That wasn't the representation at the P&C meeting, that it would be sales and then also something else. It was sales and repair and maintenance relative to the sale product. So that's where I'm at on that. But I have absolutely no problem with you servicing a client under warranty, or if a client wants to come back and get oil changes because they like your service and they think you, I don't know where everybody.
I'm with that.
I don't know where I'm at. How many bays is this gonna have?
3. It's just a 3-bay shop. 1 bay is going to be detailing. 1 bay I'm going to put a lift in to service the vehicles that I purchase. The 3rd bay is going to be open when I move in, and I'm basically going to pull my UTVs in there at night. So, large scale, I could have 2 mechanics there, 2 bays. But I don't, again, that's not my #1 priority. 95% of what I do in Florissant is heavy mechanical. I don't want to do heavy mechanical out here. I don't need to. Out here, I want to do car sales. That's my #1 thing I want to do here. Because I don't know if you all know, but our location in Florissant is not good. We are 1 block off of Lindbergh, and it kills us. But we've managed, we've been there for 50 years, and it's word of mouth. But the purpose of coming out here is I have to have a high visibility location to sell cars.
This part's up to you.
There are still too many unknowns for me.
Well, I think if Counselor were to go back and draft what he views as the consensus of the board, when we get to that, then you'd have an opportunity either up or down.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would suggest is, and I think we can actually, as we've gone through this, has been a good process. I've come up with some language that I think would probably work if you want to consider it tonight. Is don't also remember, and Bart will tell you this as well, is, you know, it doesn't sound like you're intending on doing light vehicle repair immediately. I mean, if this condition can be approved and you can get operational and come back and amend your conditional use permit as well, you know, once you have a better idea of kind of what you're doing and whatnot, you know, because staff just has a discomfort with it at this point. You know, like Alderman Dyer said, you know, just it's too unknown, you know, of exactly what's going to happen there. And the language I came up with was require that repairs or service may occur only to vehicles owned by the business or service pursuant to a vehicle warranty. And I think that would probably cover it, and then you guys can consider that if you wanted to.
I think my point was covered by the warranty or service to that vehicle after the warranty period. So he can establish a customer relationship. relationship. That's my thinking.
I think I would need a little more time. We'd
Okay.
probably have to pass that for,
Okay.
the ordinance consideration for me to do a little wordsmithing on that.
Mr. McRoberts, I know it's not fully what you're looking for, but I mean, is this something that you can agree to at this time?
Well, since I have a closing date scheduled on the property on the 26th, a week from tonight, yes, I ultimately I want to do what you had said. I want to be able to service our customers after sale. Who wouldn't?
Sure.
So I want to be able to, part of business is building relationships with people. So I want to be able to build a relationship with people, selling them a car, but being there after the sale. If this will pass tonight and I have to agree to, we'll visit the mechanical issue in depth later, I guess that's what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is you can come back and request to amend your conditional use permit if it's something you wanted to pursue at a later time.
But if it passed tonight, I would be allowed to do repairs on my vehicles that I purchase, and I would be able to handle any warranty issues. Correct?
Correct.
The issue is if they come back later and want to have repairs.
Or
that
ongoing
would-
past the warranty,
past the warranty.
is the way I'm understanding it, correct?
Well, that wasn't my issue was if it's past the warranty, I don't care. As long as it's a vehicle you purchased. My issue is to go out and start soliciting, oil changes, and so somebody's over K2 and do oil changes. And so my thought would be that's kind of changing the component of the business. So, but if you had somebody who comes in under warranty, you help them after the warranty, because you could probably sell them another car or two. I want you to do that, but to start a business up that says if you're K2 and want to drop your car off for an oil change or tires or whatever, that's the line I see, and that's why I'm thinking saying if you've been here for a while and you decide that's going to be a critical part of your business and you see that, then that would be a consideration under another request.
Come on.
Yeah, yes, come up here.
As you can see, the garage doors we put on the back side, so it can't be, nothing can be seen from Highway 70. Just because of how reputations of mechanics, we pay our mechanics a salary. They're not on a bonus where if they find more, they get paid more. We pay them a good salary instead. So when we have this one mechanic working, and we're paying him a salary all day, it's going to take almost all of his time to repair cars for us. But when he has an extra hour during the day, we don't really want to pay him just to twiddle his thumbs. So we're not talking about a ton of mechanical work. Like some of our light mechanical work is Enterprise, when they get through renting cars, before they sell them, they're just, look these over. I mean, they're going from one parking lot to drive to the next parking lot. That's when they might need tires. That's when they might. Now, we don't have that account out here, but that's all we're talking. We're not talking overhauling cars, and we're not talking, we're going to have one lift. Our car sales are number one. So any mechanical work that we might want to take in is something that's going to take 30 minutes to do. It's not, we're not going to tie up that lift for 6 hours because we've got to get our car sales going. So as far as it being an eyesore, the garage doors are in the back. None of these cars, if you look out at the parking lot here, you're not going to see anything different on our lot, whether they're waiting to be repaired or they're not. We sell cars mostly on the higher, in the teens. So any repairs that we do are going to be, that we would want to do, are going to be very short term, fill in a half hour here, and there's an auto body shop right next to us, and May's repair is within a stone's throw. So That's not what we're wanting to do, but we're not going to have time to do very much. One lift, you don't want to get a car in there that's going to tie up your bay for what we're doing. Mechanical, we got, I don't even know how many lifts we have. That's fine. But we're not going to, if you take in heavy mechanical, you're tying up your bay and you can't do anything else. So, I think there's a little misconception of, are we going to have parts of cars everywhere and tires everywhere, and we're not. It's very simple.
Well, I think we moved past that. I think we worked past the visibility. I think the point of consideration that you make is, if you're going to run an auto repair business like me, you're not going to run it with three bays. You won't make any money. If you go down to Mays, they probably have 10 or more vehicles they can put on the roof at any given time. So what your point is, the facility in itself restricts the type of business you run.
And since we had no intention of we did not have an intention, our intention coming out here is not to be another mechanical repair shop. Our intention is to sell cars, service the cars during the warranty period, and if Mr. Jones likes me and wants to come back after and get oil changes done and tire rotates and brakes, man, I want to welcome that. But car sales is number one, and then we want to sell UTVs because there's nobody out here doing it.
And I just want to reiterate for the board that we have to consider future land use as well. If you approve a conditional use permit and they have a right to operate a automobile repair shop, and this is not a reflection on them at all or what they intend to do. It's not about what they intend to do. It's what we can enforce, what we can regulate and enforce, and what future use it is. So if you allow automobile repairs, I understand they're saying it's light automobile repair, but how do we distinguish light automobile repair from dropping engines? How do we, when you talk about, customers that want to come back and it's this relationship and whatnot, how do we enforce it or how do we do it? And it's just, we've had used car lot issues before. We've had repair issues. We've had outdoor storage issues. This is a 3-bay. Nothing prohibits them from putting additional bays. This is a time you're considering.
For council to put additional bays to change.
It would be a building permit for additional bays and a site plan for additional bays. How we would not a conditional use. How would we would restrict it would be to restrict either the ownership on it or what'd you say, Bart? You could conditionally approve only 3 bays. You could do that as well. But I don't think that, the concern is, like I said, this is of first impression here tonight that they want to do automobile repair from outside because what was represented at planning and zoning. And what we tried to do was take what happened at planning and zoning, take concerns, and craft something around it. So our concern was, okay, this is not going to primarily turn, based on the representation, turn into an automobile repair shop or in the future turn into an automobile shop. It's an acre piece of property with a large parking lot. There's a lot of cars in state of disrepair as an automobile repair shop that could be on that in a future land use category. So that's why it's not about what they intended. It was taking what they represented at planning and zoning and trying to craft conditions to alleviate some of the concerns, not only of staff, but of some of the neighboring property owners as well.
Well, and I think we're grabbing a bigger picture here when I think the option has already been thrown out that we can amend it. So when you get your site built, you see the use, always coming back and being able to amend to be able to do that issue is an option. It's not totally cut off after this decision. It's something that can be amended and asked for. I know it's a little bit of a process that's kind of lengthy and sometimes discouraging to have to go through, but at the same time, without some of the knowns for this board, I think at least 2 members it is difficult for, and I think some of the other ones are also voicing the concerns, and I think that is why the amendment we wouldn't be opposed to, but I think that's what the safe bet would be for a lot of these boards right now. And I know it's maybe not, by the look on your face, I know it's not exactly what you're looking for, but I think working with some of the condition in the language for the added things would be something we could look at. With the
And I think why I'm a little trouble with it, but you know, I don't know how things work in the city. I kind of was under the impression that the conditional use, I mean, that's why we came with a conditional use. And I understand the concern, and you all don't know me from anybody. I understand that. But I'm 55 years old. I have a very successful business in Florissant. I don't need to do this.
No, I
want to do it. Melanie and I want to do something together. The big store is very profitable, very self-sufficient, and I can do all my big repairs there. I don't need to do big repairs out here. So what I plan on doing out here, again, maybe I sound like a broken record, it's going to be stuff like she said, like Melanie said. It's not going to look anything. The car behind the fence is not going to look any different than the car out on the showroom line.
No, and I don't think anybody's contending that at all. I think some of our concerns is from our past history of what we dealt with, and I don't know if that's been properly articulated, but let me go ahead and just say we've dealt with issues in the past where a conditional use is attached to a piece of property or a business. So, God forbid, and I'm not wishing this upon anything, you don't have anybody that wants to carry it on after you decide to retire. The building sold, the conditional use is still attached to that building. Therefore, if we allow certain things, we have no restrictions, and we can't go back and take that or limit that. And therefore, it can turn into something maybe you didn't intend for it to be, but now we have to deal with that as a city, or future boards will have to deal with it as a city, and that can be very frustrating. And what we've decided as a board is, number one, transparency. So just like we don't know you, you don't know us as well. We've decided as a board is utmost transparency we can give. Secondly is to try and look for the future and not have other boards in the future have to deal with problems that, you know, unintentionally, but we've had to deal with in the past. So we're trying to look way ahead in the future to be able to provide better decisions for our board that we can. And I'm sure in the future people are going to say, why did they decide to do that? Well, it's just the best option we had to be able to do that at the time to try and protect future decisions within our city.
Well, I'm kind of shifting my position on this. If we can put a conditional use on the number of bays, so if somebody comes along and wants to expand to something else, you know, we're talking about all this stuff about appearance and look, and we all want the South Service Road to look good, we want the Shops Warrington to look good, we want Rural King to look good, but at some point in time, their business is sitting next to a green building that you can see from miles away, and the other property sitting there is not landscaped in the front, and when are we just doing too much?
Alderman Ock, Bart came over and made a suggestion that I thought was a good one. Kind of a different approach was make it a condition of 3 bays and 1 lift. That's going to just drastically reduce their ability to do a significant amount of outside repairs.
That's where I think we need to be. I mean, it's something I can live with because I think it gets to the concerns of staff, it gets to the concerns of future Highway 7, but we all object when government tries to tell somebody how to run their business. I don't want to do that. I want you to be wildly successful within some community guidelines, and so if the restricting the bay handles that, a future problem, then I think that's the way we need to go so you can get on and be wildly successful and bring all the sales tax money in the city of Warrington.
I did want to say that, I mean, we're getting close here with what you proposed. But yes, when we open the doors, I'm only going to have money to put 1 bay, 1 lift in there. The middle bay is going to be used for parking UTVs in there for overnight. But at what point do I need a second bay, a second lift in there? Do I have to come get a permit to get a second lift in there?
I don't think the city cares what's in your bay. I think the city just is going to limit the bay because that limits the business.
And if you really look at that lot with what we're proposing to do, I have no room to expand on that property. 1 acre is eaten up with the green space and the landscaping that has to be done and the amount of cars that I want to try to put on there. We're out of room. Yes, and the required, you know, all the ordinances, we have used up that whole acre, and I can't expand, and I don't really want to expand. I don't need to. This is something that I'm planning on working another 20 years or so, you know?
So, Counselor, are you satisfied with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can, if you guys are satisfied with not regulating the lift, no more than 3 bays located, no more than 3 vehicle repair bays located on the, really it should be, you never intend to put a lift in the third one, right?
No, because
Okay,
the
so,
third bay to the east is a detail bay.
so no more than
2 bays,
2 bays
2 lifts.
that can have vehicle lifts.
Yes.
Or no more than 3 bays
Which have vehicles.
and a maximum of 2 vehicle lifts.
With that,
Is everybody
2 bays, 2 lifts, or 3 bays total.
3
2
bays,
lifts.
2 lifts? Is
Man,
everybody
I'm
on
golden.
the board good with that?
I'm good with that.
I agree with that.
Majority of the board is in agreement with that. I
Yes.
believe, as long as you're okay with
No,
that.
that's
We can come to
good.
a compromise on that.
Okay, the next one is,
I thought that was the last one.
Oh, no.
oh no, there's 2 more. One, I think that's fairly simple, require storage of tires for disposal to be inside or enclosed or in an enclosed structure. Is that an issue?
I can keep the tires inside the building, and then when I get, obviously because I'm cramped on space, I mean, I understand the mosquito thing, believe me, fluorescent is all over that. So when I get a certain amount of tires inside my building and they're taking up too much space, then I will transport them to fluorescent where they will properly be disposed of.
So that's agreeable.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then the last one is really probably the biggest concern from a staff safety perspective is no UTVs to be driven outside the owner's property, including not on Progress Parkway. You know, and our suggestion, if they're going to do test drives, allowing the applicant to create an area within his property boundaries to test drive it.
I want this one. I thought, Neil, you said something about there's a state ordinance that addresses this, or maybe I didn't hear you right already.
There is a state ordinance, that's correct.
So, I mean, we've had our biggest problem since I've been here on private roads where property owners disagree. So you got one property owner coming down on their half of the road, the other property, and they're arguing about access and all these issues. And I don't want to get into that because it's something between private property owners. So I don't know.
It is a private. However, it is a publicly accessible road that gets a great deal of traffic, especially with K4 Fitness down there. Our concern is, you know, I understand Mr. McRoberts said, well, one of my guys will always be there with me to test drive it. There's no way for us to enforce that. And keeping it on the property makes it just very clean and much easier to deal with it because, you know, there is a concern that it's right next to the interstate, right next to Veterans Memorial Parkway. We did have some discussions with one of the property owners that absolutely does not want that to occur. And I think setting aside the private property, you know, issues, that's really between the landowners. But we do feel it is a safety issue because it is a publicly accessible road right off Veterans Memorial. And it is not an improved road. I mean, I would not say the road is in the best shape. Our recommendation is, that was probably the one that was most adamant, was it does not, we do not think it's safe for us to knowingly allow on a roadway that is so well traveled people to be squirting up and down on a UTV to test drive it. That's staff's recommendation. Obviously you guys can do what you want, but that is a concern, and we did look at it, you know, and it's just not, I mean, if it was an improved road that, you know, had site improvements and was not gravel and not kind of spaced out all over the place, it would be less of a concern for safety reasons, but that is a concern for safety reasons because we're basically authorizing him to zip up and down a publicly accessible roadway that a lot of people travel on.
Well, I just want to say to that, I think what could be done, you said that there is one particular party that is adamant, no way. I guess if I would be allowed to talk to the property owners back there in person and just explain my position. Number one, they're not going to be driving 25, 30 miles an hour back there. They're going to go down to the end of my property. I will respect. I don't even know the gentleman that owns Specialty. I don't know him. So I'm not going to go down there on the front of his property. I'm going to go down to the end of my corner. They'll turn around and they'll come back up Progress and they'll pull in my lot. Just enough so they can get a feel for the vehicle. They're not going to get a real good feel for it because I'm not going to allow them to be driving 30 and 35 miles an hour, the capability of the vehicle. So I guess I would just ask if I were able to talk to the individuals, the property owners back there, and explain. And if they said, you know, Scott, we're just not comfortable with you doing that. Okay, I guess, you know, I don't want to make waves, but then again, I want to try to sell UTVs. But I understand there's a lot of cars coming in and out of there, and I understand there's kids back there at K4. That's why I wouldn't even go back there. It's not like I'm going to go down Progress Parkway and I'm going to cut in behind them and drive them back there. No, I'm going to stay away from cars because just for obvious safety reasons. But
so let me ask you, so if we were to say that we're not going to allow that to happen for safety issues, and at some point in time the property owners, all who own Progress Parkway, were to come before the board and say, we don't have any issue with that, because we're going to make road improvements or whatever, and they would come as a group, could that condition then be removed?
Absolutely. The board has taken on.
Time is out. Put a quarter.
The board has taken on amendments to conditional use permits to remove it, and really, it's not as much the permission of the other property. It really is a concern for the safety. That's not a well-defined roadway. If the roadway had improvements made, designed for, you know, and engineered for smaller vehicles to be on it as well, staff would not have an objection or an issue with it. So yeah, could they talk to the property owners, address the safety issue, work with BART to maybe look at sight distances and lines, make some safety improvements, maybe some signage and whatnot, and come back and ask the board to remove that condition? Absolutely.
Well, in light of that, I'm inclined to go with the staff recommendation about the safety issues of the road, and with the idea that at some point in time, if you can work out issues on the road with the other property owners, that would be something I'd consider.
Any other members of the board weigh in?
I would agree with Gary on that.
Yes. I don't know.
All right. So I think we've got, when it comes up for ordinance, I think I can read these conditions, and I think we've got basically agreement on everyone but the last one regarding the ATVs, and you know, I think we can take up the legislation tonight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the bill's ordinance, you will most
Definitely have to read the restrictions.
We'll even give you more time.
Well, the good thing is you won't have to hear me editorialize about it.
Thank you.
Thanks to Mr. Merck Roberts. And Bart.
Next would be the site plan?
Yes, site plan, really there's nothing exciting about it because we pretty much took it all up on the, during the conditional use permit. We were looking at the site plan for it. You guys see the layout. Landscaping meets code. Lighting meets code. Has the required number of parking spaces. Bart, how many spaces does it have?
Now you're asking me a question that I had to look up because it's been a while.
And how many spaces will be dedicated to inventory and customer parking?
The whole front area is dedicated to sales, and then the front and the side next to the building and across are dedicated to the customers. So we have 16 spaces required, and we are proposing 17, and that's with one handicap van accessible parking space.
Questions on anything for the site plan? Nope. There again, that'll be a bill later on the agenda. Thank you, Bart.
All right, and finally, we had the boundary adjustment for the Villages of Warrior Ridge subdivision. have a representative here. There's a total of 62 lots that are going to be subdivided from a multifamily to accommodate single-family homes. These lots, they were previously approved as multifamily and they were never developed. So all the lots, the way they're re-subdivided, they're going to meet the minimum 70-foot width requirement, the minimum square footage of 8,400, and they meet all the required setbacks. And they will also have, this subdivision is going to have the USPS required cluster mailboxes to be placed on Lot 50. Lot 50 is not shown on here, it's just further west. As far as staff recommendations, we recommend the cluster mailbox meeting all the USPS requirements. The approval documentation provided by the city must be installed prior to the issuance of the first occupancy permit and the re-subdivision. No component of the cluster mailboxes may be located in the city right-of-way. And also, a homeowners association must be established with the responsibility for future maintenance of the cluster mailboxes recognized in a legal document.
Historically, we've never had issues with boundary adjustments that a property owner has, as long as they're meeting the minimum lot size.
And they do meet the minimum requirement.
Anybody have any issues or questions that they want to speak about or ask the representative at this time?
Well, I think it's great that we're moving away from the multifamily into single-family homes, so I'm excited about that.
Representing your ward.
Yes. Yes.
Any questions? All right. This will also be a bill later on the agenda. Anything else, Neil?
No, that would be it.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director Brad Boozy-Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Tonight you have my monthly report. We've been doing a lot of striping out at the athletic complex, getting ready for soccer. Actually had our first game, Liberty Christian played out there tonight, and then the Youth League is scheduled to start, I think, next week. Practice, they've been having a hard time getting practice in because of the wet conditions, and also we're working out on the disc golf course. We're resizing some of the tee boxes to fit our turf that we acquired from Imperial High School, so we're getting ready to start. I think we got 8 more holes to do of resizing the tee boxes, and then we'll start laying down the turf.
Questions?
Nope.
So I will give you an apology. I didn't mention that you were at the Warrenton Downtown Association meeting as well. Brad was there with a unique individual next to him who has moved back to our town. It was nice to see and hear the input from her. So when you see her again, tell her thank you for all the input she gave.
I will do that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Public Works Director Guy Jeevers.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have a monthly report. Big part of it was snow removal, as everybody knows. We had a couple water main breaks and a few sewer backups, but pretty much we're getting ready to gear up for some sidewalk replacement and other things that we really couldn't get done because of the weather. Didn't cooperate real well. So, do you have any questions over my monthly report or anything coming up?
The only thing I saw was interesting is the water use for the first 2 months dropped down significantly. Yeah, the water usage. It seemed like we were kind of one level, then we had a big jump in 17 and 18. Now it's way back down.
Going back down. Coke has a lot to do with that too.
What has?
Coke does.
The Coke plant?
Yeah. I know they were shut down for a little bit during the holidays, and it fluctuates back and forth.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The only other thing I have for you is the Blues are winning 4-0.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're big Blues fans.
No, yeah, I appreciate that.
I know you're probably anxious.
He's probably watching it.
He's probably watching it.
No, I'm not.
All right.
Next, we'll hear from Building Commissioner Mike Cross.
Good evening, Mayor and Board.
Building report.
Questions on that? You get off easy.
Well, it's getting ready to get off easy real quick.
You got 7 new residents in the month of February, so hopefully that's going to keep skyrocketing like last year. So.
Well, I have 7 more applicants on.
Quick.
That's great.
Yes.
Great. Putting in more homes in for those technical workers, right?
That's right.
All right.
Have someplace for them to live.
There you go.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from the Chief of Police, Larry Ellard.
Good evening, Board. The first item I have for you is my public.
Questions or comments? All right.
I have 3 policies for your approval. The first is ordinance enforcement, which moves enforcement department response. Again, is written.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the following ordinance enforcement, written agreements, and body armor policies.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with 1 absent.
Last thing I have is an update on the status of our goal of becoming accredited. In order to do that, I've made a brief presentation. It's no more than like an hour and a half.
As long as it's not done by counselor, we can do this.
I am guest speaking for part of it.
No, please don't.
In order to explain where we're at in the process, I kind of have to explain the process a little bit. So, also, I've invited our accreditation manager, Nancy Ketz. So
We sat here patiently.
So, what is CALIA? Basically, it's an acronym, and it stands for the Commission on the Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. It's been around since 1979. Based by the International Chiefs of Police. The Police Executive Research Forum, and the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. So what is accreditation? CALIA's got a whole bunch of really nice language describing what it is. As you can see, it compels an agency to operate within specific guidelines and adopt policies and procedures to meet internationally accepted practices. In a nutshell, what it does is it helps us to deliver public safety services by maintaining a body of standards, and that we're willing to let an outside agency come in and inspect our compliance with those standards. So what it boils down to is we're doing what's best practices are, and we're going to allow somebody to come in and make sure that we're adhering to them. When it comes to the standards, there's 2 tiers. We're attempting to get accredited in Tier 1, which there's 181 standards. In Tier 2, there's over 400, correct? So we're starting off on the low end. Those standards are based on, the best current thinking, the best standards, constitutional law, everything that are agreed on by the commission. And you can see that all the major public safety associations, the leading educational and training institutions, government agencies, as well as public safety executives internationally acknowledge that CALIA's accreditation program is the benchmark. So we believe that we're using the best accrediting standards that there are available to us right now. So what does it do for us? It causes us to have reports and analysis that helps me to make decisions based on, the results of those analysis. It requires us to have a preparedness program for man-made and natural disasters. It helps us to improve our relationship with the community, strengthens our accountability both within and without. It limits our exposure to liability because if we're operating within the guidelines of these standards, we're not out there doing things that are going to expose us to liability, obviously. So where are we at in the process? That's the big question. Is we started off with enrollment, which we had to go through the whole process, and we applied for the CAS program, which is the community or the CALIA Agency Support Program, which I'll explain that in a little bit. I had to attend a conference to get the required training to start, and then we were accepted, and we started the self-assessment phase, which we're currently in now. During the self-assessment phase is where we need to completely create our whole written directive system to comply with the CALIA standards. We need to start generating proofs that we're complying with all those standards, and then we conduct an informal assessment on our own, looking at whether or not what we've created we feel matches the standards. The self-assessment phase is going to take us about 2 years. We're at the end of year one. We're giving ourselves optimistically till April of next year to have the self-assessment phase completed, and then we'll begin the assessment phase where we'll have another agency come in and complete a mock assessment of what we've done. Then we'll have a web-based assessment of what we've done by CALIA personnel, and then actual on-site auditors will arrive for the final assessment to ensure that we're in compliance with all the standards. And then finally we'll be issued an award at the next CALIA conference. So we started this in August of 2017. We began gathering all the information that we needed. In October we applied, and I say we, a lot of help from administration applying for the scholarship, which I'll explain again in a second. We submitted our CASP application in December. In March, I attended the conference, as I earlier mentioned, and then we were accepted into the program and officially started our self-assessment phase in April of last year. The CASP that I keep mentioning is basically, we would normally pay $11,450 for the initial enrollment fee, and then when we were ready for our on-site, we would have to pay an additional cost, basically covering the auditors to actually physically come here, paying for their time, for their lodging, etc. So by applying for and being awarded the CASP program, we saved about $9,650, which was credited to us by CALIA. So the policy process, which the board is the last step in, the first thing we'll do is create a policy or revise a current policy, which there wasn't too many existing to revise. Most have been created. Once one's been created, we'll have a committee review that, and that committee consists of the director of operations, myself, a lieutenant, a sergeant, senior patrolman, detective, and the accreditation manager. At that point, we'll agree on whether or not corrections need to be made, or we need to seek further advice or do further research. Then it goes to the city administrator for review. It will would then come back to us if any changes need to be made. Then it goes to the city attorney for review. Again, back to us again if it needs any changes. And then finally moved on to the Board of Aldermen for vote and signature by mayor. So as you can see, one policy from creation to end it's a couple of months process to get that all going. And then finally, it's reviewed by all personnel and then sign-off sheet was before we had Power DMS. Now they're reviewed on a computer and signed off on electronically. So what's a standard? Here's an example of one. So as you can see, they say if we have in-car body-worn cameras, we need to have a written directive to include those bullet points A through G. We need to provide proof that we're in compliance with each one of those bullets, which is why it takes so much auditing to make sure that we're in compliance with all this. And then the commentary at the bottom is we're not held to that. That's just suggested language and why we need to do what we're supposed to be doing. So as you can see, just in one, this would cover one, we'd have one policy, which you've already approved for in-car body-worn camera. You can see how many bullets went into it. So where are we at? In 2017, when we first started, we got a head start a little bit by starting to revise our policies. In 2018, last year, we created 44 new policies. And then so far this year, we've got 7 started. Out of those policies, we've covered, when we say in progress, those 91 standards that we've completed out of the 181 required, those 91 that are in progress are actually in place, completely approved, and have been implemented. The 71 that are not in compliance, we either haven't started on or they're still in the process that I explained earlier of being written, approved, and then 19 of them are not applicable to us by function, such as covering our K-9 or our SWAT team, reserve officers, things that we don't have. So if you have any questions for us, I'd be happy to answer that.
Chief, how many local or surrounding areas are CALEA accredited, do you know? Wentzville, Troy, St. Charles?
I believe Wentzville is the closest CLIA accredited department, and Wentzville's not. They may be Missouri. There's 2 Missouri Chief of Police, which is a shorter accreditation process, and then there's CLIA. I know St. Charles County Police Department just recently got CLIA accredited. St. Charles City, Chesterfield, and St. Louis County, I think, are the CLIA accredited departments in the metro area. And, it's a big process, but, the biggest department's the best, and St. Louis City is CLIA accredited too. St. Louis, and yeah, and we beat out Ferguson for that CSA grant too. So, and I mean, if you guys have paid attention to the Better Together, one of the main tenets of it is St. Louis County is a CLIA certified department, and most of the other municipal ones are not. So we'll be one of the smallest CLIA accredited departments when we finish this. It's a big undertaking.
I just know that when the Binkley Company, excuse me, when the Binkley Company rolled out their ISO certification, what a huge undertaking that is. And I wonder how many more people we're going to need to take care of this. It's just an enormous task to be ISO certified, and I'm sure this is probably along the same vein.
We finally are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I guess the point that I didn't touch on enough is there's 181 standards, and the ones that are not applicable and the ones we've finished, or we've got 118 done. So we're more than half done with a year to go.
Some of the things we did touch on in the past were that a lot of times you do have to have one person designated to solely keeping up with the CLIA standards.
Compliance is always huge issue.
That's what Nancy's job is, unfortunately, is. That's what she's
Uh-huh.
Who may be one of the smallest, but one of the best.
We're trying, anyway. So if you have any other questions for us while we're here, I'll try to sputter out some more sentence fragments and.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for the presentation. Anything else, Chief?
Sir.
All right, we are at the bills to ordinance. This will be something we will rely on, Counselor, and what be it to get through. So,
Actually, Melody has them ready to go. You want me to read them, Melody, or I think you got them pretty accurately.
and I'm hoping, I don't know if I need to help or not. I know on this first one, I think the only restriction that we'll do is the removal of the condition of the limiting the seasonal display space outside. Is that correct? Okay. So I will entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 08-19 with the condition of removing the conditions of limiting the seasonal display space outside.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
The zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Rural King located at 1 Rural King Way.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 08-19, there again with the removal of the condition for limiting the seasonal display space outside.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Dyer.
The zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Rural King located at 1 Rural King Way.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Resounding yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 5-0 with one absent. I will entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 09-19, and I will let you read the conditions on that one.
The condition that vehicles not for sale be kept in the fenced-in area. 2, no disabled vehicles on the lot. 3, require the parking lot to be paved and the fenced-in area to be gravel. 4, no parking on the grass on the north side of the sidewalk. UTVs that are parked on the grass will only be during business hours. 5, storage of disposable tires inside a vehicle only. 6, no more than 3 vehicle bays, 2 of which may have vehicle lifts in them. And 7, no UTVs driven on Progress Parkway.
I missed or not hear the one about continued service for vehicles under warranty or customers.
Well, I think we took that out and just went with the bays and lifts. That's what I understood. It was kind of like the bays and the lift will naturally restrict.
So that, and he has the facility to do it, so
Yeah.
that's not part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. Okay.
The motion's on the floor with those conditions. The
Make a motion
for
to
the first reading.
approve. I make a motion to approve with those conditions.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Ock.
Ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow McRoberts Motors and automobile sales, service, and repair business located at 534 Progress Parkway.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 09-19 with the pre-read conditions, or do you need to read them again? Counselor, does she need to read those again since they were already addressed in the first reading?
No, you can just read the ordinance title as amended. Because that's part of the body of the ordinance.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 09-19 with the amendments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow McRoberts Motors an automobile sales, service, and repair business located at 534 Progress Parkway.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Dyer?
No.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Bill passes 4-1 with one absent. entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 10-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for McRoberts Motors located at 534 Progress Parkway.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 10-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Ock.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for McRoberts Motors located at 534 Progress Parkway.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
No.
Bill passes with a 4-1 vote and 1 absent. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 11-19.
Moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance accepting the boundary adjustment for the village's Boyer Ridge lots 31 through 33, 35 through 45, 64 through 77, 79, 81 through 83, 85 through 88, 90 through 93, 95 through 104, 106 through 117 by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 11-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance accepting the boundary adjustment for the villages of Boyer Ridge lots 31 through 33, 35 through 45, 64 through 77, 79, 81 through 83, 85 through 88, 90 through 93, 95 through 104, 106 through 117 by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Dyer?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
The bill passes 5-0 with 1 absent. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 12-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance of the city of Warrenton, Missouri approving a petition to establish a community improvement district, establishing the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District as a political subdivision of the state of Missouri, approving the appointment of the initial board of directors of the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District, declaring that the real property within the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District is a blighted area under the Community Improvement District Act, and directing the city clerk to notify the Missouri Department of Economic Development of the creation of the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 12-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance of the city of Warrenton, Missouri approving a petition to establish a community improvement district, establishing the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District as a political subdivision of the state of Missouri, approving the appointment of the initial board of directors of the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District, declaring that the real property within the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District is a blighted area under the Community Improvement District Act, and directing the city clerk to notify the Missouri Department of Economic Development of the creation of the Shops at Warrenton Community Improvement District.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Bill passes 5-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 13-19.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance amending section 500.110, amendments to International Building Code of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 13-19.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
Ordinance amending section 500.110, amendments to International Building Code of the Municipal Code of the City of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Dyer,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 5-0. I will entertain a motion for the close of the regular Board of Alderman meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Dyer. All those in favor? We are so adjourned, folks. Thanks for hanging with us.